I have oil.
Good evening and welcome to the ARPA committee meeting for October 11th, 2022. I had to think for a minute on that one. We have a quorum here tonight, and so we can move forward from there. Do we have any minutes, Mr.
I
Secretary?
do not have them ready.
Okay, so we'll hold off on that till next
Next
meeting.
meeting they will be.
And so, again, we got a lot of work done at the last meeting. I appreciate everybody's spending the extra time to go through the matrix and kind of rank everything. I appreciate that time. What I did was, from that, I created a matrix. I've handed out here, the ARPA project matrix. And I took the rankings we put in there and then put the projects in by the higher total rating that we gave them out of the matrix that we used. So you can see there, matrix totals there, down there. Second column, third column is the amount they're requesting. Funding category is the next column. Then I broke down this public health, revenue reserve funds, or RRF, whatever that was. No impact, and, oh, I'm sorry. Welcome, Nadia. And the pay for whatever is the police request is that last column. Then the question comments is kind of just spaces that I have about the project from looking at them at a high level. And then after that, this next page is a kind of a summary to give us a picture of where we are with how much money we need if we want to meet all these requests, or how much money we're going to have left over if we don't meet them all. So the original money from the state was $1.5 million, plus the other numbers there. Plymouth County, we've got $2.7 million. All right, and the state funds can be used for the revenue replacement funds. So we've already spent $53,976 of those, leaving the current balance as the number there, 1,466, plus a few other numbers. So projected spending available is $352,703 for the revenue replacement funds, and then the lower column is the Plymouth County funds. So they have more attachments, if you remember from the training, into how you can spend them. So we have requested in support public health of $3.1 million, $706,000 in no impact or negative impact, and then the triple P for EW, $47,500.
And just to keep in mind, the support public health, when he put this together, went by what the application said,
Right.
but we don't necessarily know if those are all truly public health, if they would truly fall under supporting public health according to Plymouth County. And that's kind of what I spent some time on in the last 2 weeks, was reaching out to Plymouth County. Unfortunately, couldn't get any solid answers because the person assigned to us is out for the last couple weeks. I think is in next week. Do you mind if I kind of talk about what I sent to Plymouth County?
Sure.
So I did the same thing and put the projects in order, and I went through the ones that I think maybe, of the top ones, that maybe we could fit under the public health, to ask them about. So the outdoor pavilion, I was asking about the improvement of town trails, was asking about, but I don't believe, since that's coming from outside of the town, I think Plymouth County had made it clear that they're not giving money to anyone outside of the town. The playground equipment I asked about, and the electronic signs, the mental health salaries and social emotional positions at the school, and the renovation of the basketball courts. Those were like the top rated projects that I wanted to see if there's any way that we could fit those under Plymouth County's money, so I'm waiting to hear back on those items. And then, once we get those, I can ask kind of more questions about some of the other projects, but those were the big ones.
Okay. Appreciate you doing that. That's good to know, and, kind of leads me to another point that I wanted to address tonight somewhere. I don't know if it's actually in the detailed agenda, is though there were a lot of SPHs, or support public health requests here, and I was wondering if maybe it would make sense to talk to the people, maybe move some of them to revenue replacement funds, whereas there are less strings, and it'd be kind of a simple thing for them to go through it rather than having to come up with a narrative to support the Plymouth County needs. And I know you already, the thing you did with Eric that you sent me,
Yep.
so that, you know, he talks about the narrative, and that was one of the questions I was gonna ask you tonight is, I mean, do we have to come up with a narrative on everything, or
So
some
the-
sort of a
I would, so
more
the
legal
other
description?
information that Plymouth County gave me is that, so I was asking these questions thinking that that was kind of the process, you know, that would be how they would want it, so I'd get an idea of whether a project would qualify. We would then, if it would, we'd submit an application. But actually, what they're looking for is to submit an application, and then they'll tell us, once the application is submitted, whether it would qualify or not, which to me seemed like
Well,
a
it's
lot of legwork on
Yeah, but.
our part rather than a question, but I do get
When
it.
we dealt with CARES, it was the opposite. We'd spend
Right.
the money, and then you always were worried.
Whether it was
was
gonna
gonna
get
qualify
kicked
or
back.
not.
Yeah,
And, I mean, it was not huge, it was like $30,000 or $50,000 of money that we spent here that didn't qualify. But we're gonna be spending a lot more money on these projects. And rather than buying things like masks and such, these are larger, in general, these are larger ticket items. So that if we spent $150,000 or $200 or $250 on something, only to find out that, as far as Plymouth County is concerned, it's not gonna qualify, then we've gotta go back into the reduction in revenue category and say, okay, we gotta use our own funds.
right. And if we've already spent it, then, you know,
Right,
it's a done
exactly.
deal. So I think the way he left it before I can speak to Tom at Plymouth County was that he'll probably help us with the questions that we asked, but what we should be doing and can do is for any of the projects we want to see if they qualify, we can actually submit applications. But in the application, I haven't gone through it in detail for that type of expense. We would probably have to have some sort of narrative of how it fits the category.
But yeah, then you go back to the originators, the folks who applied for the money, and work, say, look,
Right.
we're interested in possibly funding this. We're gonna try and get the money from Plymouth County, but they're gonna ask for this additional information.
Right.
Want us to move forward, you need to help us.
Do either of you have a sense of how detailed the application is going to be, or?
The application itself for the initial application, I don't think is overly detailed, but then it goes through multiple levels of review where they can come back and ask questions. I can pull one up.
We applied for, we've done one.
We've done one for the ambulance, and that was, it wasn't,
It was straightforward.
right, it was straightforward. And then
I mean, there was no disagreement. I mean, literally in the final rule from the feds.
the ambulance was a very easy one, as it says.
Specifically says ambulances, so, I mean, that was but we still actually haven't gotten a yes from them, I don't believe.
I don't think so. No, it was in the final level.
So, this,
Last I checked.
unfortunately, I'm hoping that for applications where we haven't spent the money, they'll speed the process up. But we submitted the ambulance application 3-4 months ago, at least,
Easily.
so.
Well, we're not gonna spend any money on any of this until we know it's approved, right?
Right,
We're submitting first.
yes.
Yeah, I mean, you got the applications, the question is if you want Plymouth County money, don't spend it
Right.
until you know that they've said yes. Unlike we did it for the ambulance, and we did it for the sanitary sewer system, because those were gonna be relatively easy. They were very specific in the final rule, anything to do with wastewater treatment is in.
Right.
Okay. Anything to do with mitigation, prevention, whether it was COVID or anything else, is in. But it gets more complicated when you're talking about a trail, for instance, or a playground or something like that. So yeah, we shouldn't be spending money, if we're gonna use Plymouth County money to fund one or more of these applications, which we obviously are, it might be, you recommend it, the selectmen don't say yes until, however, if they wanna say yes, until we get something from Plymouth County saying thumbs up or thumbs down.
Just because they approve something obviously doesn't mean that we have to end up going through with it. And they did say the premium pay, this PPP column here, the premium pay is not through Plymouth County because like we were saying before, you have to start at your lowest level earners and move up. You can't just pick a class of workers and give them the premium pay, so.
And on that one, when I looked at it, and I looked at the final rule, it talks about they have to be making less than 150% of the average worker across the state. So, and that's not just the
Right.
same job they're in, that's the average worker from,
But the feds did leave a lot of loopholes in there, but basically Plymouth County said, forget about the loopholes, we're going by that measurement first, unless you're gonna help those people at the low end, we're not gonna approve something
Right.
that's just for folks at the high end. Even though, no question, whether they're police officers, whether they're EMTs, whether there are any number of other positions in town government, for that matter, outside town government, that qualify as essential workers, unless your plan for doing premium pay includes all the folks at the lower end of the wage scale, we're not gonna say yes.
okay? All right, anybody have any other questions on this so far? All right, so another thing I wanted to bring up tonight, and maybe I'm jumping around a little bit, but is, do we wanna go through and just take, do we have $1,000, do we wanna spend the whole $1,000? Or do we wanna say, all right, we'll take maybe the top most critical projects, spend that money, and then we have another year or a year and a half, 2 years to decide on the rest, and have that money in the bank for something else that may come up after we get down the road a little bit?
As an advisor, I would advise we don't spend all the money on day one, because needs and things can change. If we approve
Right.
everything today, and 8 months from now, something pops up that really should be in here, we won't be able to do it.
Right.
And I think we still need to learn by going through the process that maybe we do select one or two that are public health, that we have to do some applications to make sure we're in line with the thinking and what the approval process is, and take, because there are 3 or 4, I think, significant things here that would be wise to do. But that's up to you folks to vote on. But I would suggest, since the revenue replacement money is kind of easy to use, right, compared to the public health, that we do like 2 or 3 applications for public health, if everybody agrees on what the top, like, 2 or 3 are. And then that way the department heads or whoever's making the request can go through that process too, and then we can educate others. And it would also help us, or help you, actually trim down the list. If they say no because of this, no because of this, it might be less work.
Right.
So,
Because I think a no to some of these, like the repurposing of the courts at Church Street, if Plymouth County says no to that, that's gonna probably help us with a lot of these other ones.
Yeah.
Because a lot are from rec and,
because I know everybody looks at that and says, well, Church Street or the Pavilion or whatever, it's public access space, it's good for the youth, it's good for the seniors, it's good for the town. I don't know what you want, but the outdoor movie thing, it's an opportunity to gather, keep distance, et cetera. So, I think you're right. A couple of submissions will guide us on the rest of them, I think.
Yep. Anybody else have any thoughts?
just a comment on these signs for the middle and central school, I think the signs can probably be public health, because there's a caveat in there for, I forget the wording, communications to the
I agree.
public.
Okay.
The only question around that would be, do you need 3 signs within a quarter of a mile of each other?
That is a
It's
question.
just me.
It's on there.
And then the thought, again, on the signs, shouldn't we get standard signs that would cost the same amount of money? I mean, I don't see that the needs of the central school and the middle school are that different.
I wonder if
Yeah,
it
maybe
has
you could
anything
say
to
that-
do with running the
Yeah.
electric or something like that. I have no idea.
How much, I wouldn't think.
That would be my only,
But,
but I
mean,
agree,
that's
they
something we
should be
can
the
look
same
into.
signs.
But there's good distance between central school and the middle school from here to.
Yeah.
So some people, like, if you're traveling, if you live on that side of town, you'll see it. But if I live on the other side of town, I wouldn't be able to see that sign because I don't travel that way. So that's why I think the
Yeah.
purpose is there, just to kind of get everybody, all directions that they're passing through.
Right, but my point is that you come through the lights, the center of town, you're gonna see 3 signs over the course of a mile. And if I go the other way through the center of town, I'm never gonna see another sign until I get to Brockton and they have one up. No, it's just that one road that's gonna have the 3 signs, and sure, there's gonna be different information on the town hall one, and the middle school one may have a little bit different information than the other one, but like days off, they're all gonna be the same, or activities will be a little bit different, but, I mean, it's a concentrated thing, and I think it's more of a discussion at a high level here today, and we need to have in conjunction with meeting with those folks, I think, we'd wanna probably bring those 3 groups together to go through the meeting and.
I think it's different because, like I said, I have kids are in 2 different schools.
Right.
And I'm always like confused where I'm supposed to be, like where to go, because I'm always showing up for the wrong date and the wrong time. So
Yeah, because they run on different
Different
early
schedule-
release
yeah, different
schedules and
schedules, I'm
parent-teacher
like-
conference schedules and stuff
yeah,
like that.
that's my position on that.
I think that I agree with your point that you either see town hall and high school, or you see town hall and middle school. Central school and middle school, central school and town hall. But in my case, I rarely go by the middle school.
Yeah.
So, there's a valid point to have one over there and maybe not have one at the central school, but at the town hall. So just my opinion on that, because I rarely go by the middle school.
It's
And I
far out.
agree, I mean, I don't have kids in school, but I always, Sundays I go by the high school sign all the time,
Right.
and I'm always going by these 2 going other places, but it's just, I mean, it's a detailed discussion to have with the people that are putting the projects together, and let them provide the rationale behind what their decision was, or their desire was to have the separate signs. 'Cause obviously, they've talked because 2 of the 3 are from the school department, so it's the same requester.
Wouldn't it be an improvement to have just a town hall sign for now? And so that's, a step ahead. For me, like, I live on the outskirts of town, I don't have kids in the school system, I never come this way. To have 3, to me, is complete overkill. To have an improvement, to have it at town hall. I mean, I do, once in a great while, come this way, and I would probably look to town hall for any kind of guidance and stuff. 3 is, I think it's definitely overkill.
And then count the high school too. There's another one right there, just down the road. So then you'd have 4 within a half mile of each
I
other.
mean, great if there was tons of money to flow around, but
I mean,
town hall would be a great improvement.
that's another point, because, at some point in time, we're gonna have to figure out how much of the money goes into what, and what money is gonna be left over, or where we're gonna be scraping and kinda get the last project through with the money that we have. But I think, that, the important thing is we are thinking about it, right? And this is on TV now, so there'll be other people out there that are aware of what we're thinking, and maybe they can come back to us. But definitely on the day we're discussing those projects, we're gonna have the requesters here who can give us all detailed information behind the request and support it. like, you know, it's coming from the school department will know more about what's going on and what they're gonna, type of information they're gonna put on the sign. I mean, I believe I can imagine what they're gonna put on it, but I've been wrong before. And, let's just see what happens when they come. Well, it's just, you know, and that's the type of thing where you'd have, you wouldn't say, okay, we're just gonna have the school department, we'll have the school department in the town hall that night. I'll let the three of them work it out. Right, wrong, or indifferent, I made a suggestion to somebody about one of the other projects that, you know, made them rethink it, and they may be coming back with a different proposal.
So if there's 3 or 4 that everybody agrees on it's worthwhile to look at, you don't have to go into big discussions tonight, but you can invite those folks to the next meeting for follow-up.
What I would like to do is pick one and invite them and go through the process with one
Let's do 2, John.
One project or one,
project. You know, and just kind of go through the process and see what it is and work the kinks out, rather than have, you know, a number of groups here, whether it be 2 or more, and sitting here all night and we get through one. But, you know, maybe we can figure one out tonight, maybe the signs would be a good one to start with. But,
But the sign one may take you a while to resolve.
oh, that's why there's only one. And there's only 2 requesters.
How about the doors at the Central and the Mitchell School? That's something that's pretty cut dry and wouldn't require much longer. Meeting.
All right, so
I think that one, is likely to come from revenue replacement. Unless anyone in their reading saw anything that would fall under the Plymouth County money. Charlie, would you agree?
I mean, I think there's no harm in sending it to Plymouth County,
Mhm.
just simply,
But you haven't seen anything that jumps out at you that it would definitely qualify.
Charlie, do you have a copy of this, by the way?
well, I have the spreadsheet, but I have the applications with me.
This is the one we're working off of tonight. Thank you, Nadia.
Thank you.
Geez, you walk like me.
I'm just wondering about the refurb to renovate 2 courts on Church Street. We just allocated some money for a project down there for 1 court, was it? Didn't we?
I think so, yeah.
I think that was mentioned in one of the proposals.
In the application, I think.
Yeah. I just don't know if it was that one. Because they got some state money too.
Right, they got some state money,
They got state money,
but it wasn't enough to do the whole job.
yeah.
Oh, yeah, so they have 55,000 in funding from the state and 40,000, that was in the budget for 23.
Right.
So the 95 that is, it says is funding enough to furnish 2 basketball courts. And then they're requesting additional funding for the following. It spells out site prep, security cameras, lighting, et cetera, fencing. It's on like a separate page. I think it's the next page, yep.
Pickleball courts.
That's in here.
In there.
Part of it, yeah.
Melanie, you mentioned that you didn't think that would come under support public health?
I'm not sure. It's not, I think a lot of the applications that were submitted under support public health were in the idea that anything that promoted outdoor activities was eligible, but I don't see that in the guidelines. I think it says, and what we talked about, that they did confirm at Plymouth County was if it serves a disadvantaged group, but that is open to interpretation, and I don't know what the qualifications of a disadvantaged group are.
They don't
That would
say
be.
that anyway.
So,
I mean, I know it's one of the bigger ones that we have on here, but if the mental health and social emotional funding through the schools does support, I mean, it's pretty clear that supports
Yes.
public health. And we could start it through the process, because they have funding through the end of the 22-23 school year. But if this process does take a while, they're gonna need to know if they have that for the following year before we get too far into the budget season.
I think that makes sense, but
But then the next question comes up on the guidelines as to, when that money's gone, how are we gonna fund it?
and
Agreed.
I think we just said last time that we would have a conversation with John and Liz about that, and I did talk to, John was in my office recently, and he knows that that would be a conversation that we would have if that was something that we were looking to do. And if it is that they have to lay them off or apply for other grants at the end of the time, then at least you've had these positions for 3 more years that you wouldn't have had them for, so.
Did they ever say what had happened to the ESSER money?
It was for, I can double check through, but they said that it's been for salaries. And I believe that that is the case, but I can run through all the records. But I think that's what's been paying these people's salary up until now.
So what was their plan before ARPA came about, would be my question.
Right.
I don't know if they-
No, I don't have
they
an
haven't
answer
asked.
to that, but I think that's the type of questions they would expect to get.
All right, so, does anyone feel strongly about any one project that we would use as to cut our teeth on?
Are we saying to have, like, to call someone in to talk about?
Yes.
To me, that would be the first one that would be my first one.
The inclusive playground equipment?
No, the salaries.
Mental health and
Mental
social
health.
emotional.
Yeah, that we were just talking about.
Anybody else have any others that they would put forth?
Should we try one of the outdoor ones, and since we've got that really says mental health, and do one of the outdoor ones to try to get clarification?
That's a good point.
Yeah, kind of go shoot.
Since they're doing half the job at Church Street, let's finish the other half. We'll see what happens, because a lot of kids and families use that area.
And if we're having John come in, he can talk
Right.
about that one too.
So we've got both ends of the spectrum covered, and will give us some guidance on the other ones.
Well, just a question on that. We bring somebody in, and we're gonna, not necessarily interrogate them, but we're gonna find out specifics? Are we gonna have a goal other than just chatting with them and finding out what their whole application is for? I mean, and then once that's done, where is that going? That's going to us to vote on, or is to vote on forward to the Board of Selectmen? You know, I guess I'm trying to put into some sort of order in my own head what we're doing here and where it's leading.
I think that's what we're doing, is trying to have somebody come in and have our process. Well, you know, I would expect that each of us would have questions of whoever it is that's making the application. And through those questions, we'd create a dialogue where they would talk about what they were doing. We'd be able to get the details around it, you know, specifics that, you know, may not have come out in the application process, and understand what they're doing. And then based on that, we would be developing a process. We'd probably find out after we did it, we did something we shouldn't have done or didn't do something we should have done, and learn from the process with that one to develop a more clear-cut process for the rest of the people as they came in.
And then where does that application go? I guess is what I'm getting at from there.
Well, I think
I
if
think
we,
if-
I'm sorry, I was just gonna say, the way it sounded like was that once we talked to, you know, if we talk to someone about these two applications, if at the end of our conversations with them, if the projects were still on the table, not what, you know, not, you didn't have to make any final decisions, but we could try to put an application in with Plymouth County just to get the ball rolling on something. But that doesn't commit us to anything to do that.
Doesn't commit us until the Board of Selectmen vote on it.
I guess that's what I'm wondering. That's the next step. Everything we do goes to the board.
Oh, absolutely.
Right, which it should be, but I guess, okay.
Now, we only make
Could take a while
recommendations.
doing it with all of these, doing it this way.
That's why we're taking two.
Well,
Have we agreed to that?
I don't know, take four, I don't know.
if
Yeah.
John Shea is the person of contact for some of these projects, and maybe we should just have him do the ones that his name on it. That way we can just have him come in and just address all of those.
We'd need a few weeks to do it.
I
He's
think
on
we
almost
could-
every- 2/3 of the applications
Or
are
maybe
him.
we could say that we focus on these two, and then if we have some off-the-cuff questions on some of the other ones.
I think the question's gonna be relatively the same, though, as we went through them when we were going through it before. Really kind of like, it's kind of similar, and kind of like the same questions that would be the same apply for the rest of the stuff.
But again, what we're trying to do here is move forward, but we're trying to develop a model that will work for all 27 requests that we have on the table today, which that number could increase over time also. But, you know, I mean, John Shea is the most profligate,
Terrific.
whatever, submitter of requests. Every time I see him, I ask him how his wrist is doing. And, but I, you know, I think, I liked one, but I'm willing to do two, you know, from two different spectrums, try two different spectrums and
And
see.
the only reason that is because, even to her point, is that if we do the outdoor space one, and they say, no, that's not public health, it's gonna eliminate maybe 10 of these.
Right.
And we don't know what Plymouth County's looking at for a turnaround time. Like you said, we put in for the ambulance, which is a straightforward request, and you know, we did go back and forth, them needing some documents that we had to request from the company and stuff like that, but still, it's been a lot of time, and we haven't seen.
Well, actually, so based on that thought process and going through that with the ambulance, do we think we have everything, or that these two requests would have everything detailed out for Plymouth County to make a decision?
I can pull up the applications and send like what the template, you know, what questions they ask on it. I could send that in the morning.
Because that would be,
See
if we did have John in, then we could go through that with him. This is what you're gonna need, and if you can't get that to
Yes.
us within this amount of
yeah, I
time,
can
we're moving on
definitely-
to another
Yes.
request.
Yeah,
Give it to them in advance so you can be prepared with it, say, this is the information we're gonna need.
yeah, I can definitely do that.
Actually, probably do that with all of the requests.
Right.
Is there any reason to take some of the simpler ones and try to knock those off right away? And that instead of taking something very complicated, which I get the sense this emotional, mental health piece is going to be because of outside funds and everything else, something more straightforward, like the signs, like we're talking about, and try to focus on those, get them done and off our plate.
I think that makes sense. I mean, one caveat, my take is I don't wanna rush into anything.
Right.
I don't know if I don't wanna say we, so I say I don't wanna rush into anything. We have plenty of time, right? And rather than just, try and knock some off the plate, as you say, we may miss something. I think it's more important we develop the base. That's where I'm going for this, one or two projects and trying to set up the model of how we run the request process, how we get back to people, how, what the back and forth is going to be, and how long it's gonna take before we start pulling other people in and find out, a month later that we should have done this, and we got 17 projects out there that are in process that now are gonna go back and rethink something. I think, start out walking before we run, and kinda just keep the time frame is a couple of years, so we have plenty of time to do the stuff. And I think once we do get going, I don't think we'll spend a lot of time on it. I mean, I can't guess on when we're done, but I would think by the first of the year, we should be through most of the meetings that we need to have and have made our decisions on most of them.
Plus, we're making some assumptions. We're trying to learn more about what the mental health piece is.
Right.
We think that the mental health and social emotional will be like a no-brainer, right? So, and if that's not, we've got to really do something a lot more, difficult. It's going to help guide us as to what's really going to make the cut and what's not going to make the cut with
Right.
them.
No, and I
And we've
think,
got the big thing of, we all talked about earlier about, we made the assumption just because it was outdoor space, it was gonna be fresh air, no COVID, no nothing, and that would pass too, so we'll learn quite a bit. And this 27 or whatever request might turn down to 12.
right.
And then and that just opens up the door for other things that
others,
we
right.
learn that would qualify.
I mean, because people have more than a year to put in requests still. And it's not like we're gonna do the 27 tonight and be done.
Right.
But, and another thing that occurred to me with what Dave was saying is, like, and Melanie's saying, is we don't really know what the back and forth time's gonna be with Plymouth County. So, kind of go through, say we pick two, we go through those two, and we kind of get a feeling of what the time is and how long things are gonna take. And it'd be an opportunity to tell the requesters, so the people that have applied for these monies, that this is what the time frame is gonna be. It's not gonna be you come here on Tuesday the 14th and,
Tuesday and Thursday. It's very hot up here.
It's very hard.
Yes, it is.
I think it's all good input, and, I think we all agree, we wanna try to get going, get off the ground a little bit. Maybe walk but not run, is my sense, only maybe because that's what I wanna do, but,
If John's coming up, I mean, we can talk to him about the 2 school signs as well. Put those near the, but it would be hard to talk about all of them.
All the, but at least he's
But-
gonna be here, and then some of them are basic, like I said, the small project, it's not like detailed as the
Right.
social emotional learning piece, like that we're discussing, so I just think that some of the smaller things that,
Right.
he suggested, we should be able to kinda like get a quick answer with regards to that and get things moving.
I think it would be reasonable to talk about the sign.
I think one of the benefits of having him come is, he's got more requests than anyone else, so if he learns the process as quickly as we do,
And he'll have the application questions as well, then, and he can go back and see how it fits in.
But I would think that it's not the dollar value or the size of the application, it's the process that takes time. So whether we're submitting for a $50,000 project or a $200,000 project, it's gonna
or
take
$1 million
just so much time.
project.
Yeah.
Well, that's another question I had too, though. Are there any in this whole list that we would not even consider moving forward?
I mean, going by the way we use the matrix, there's some people that come up low, but
Does that mean
Yeah.
they're rejected, or does that mean they just get a lower priority?
I think, to me, it's like, the higher priority means it's more, I want to say valid project, but it's a more solid project that we think would pass the criteria. The lower ones, maybe not so much, but I wouldn't think we'd be in a position right now to knock anybody off the list for any reason. I mean, I think, again, we have a couple of years to do it, so if 3 of the big money projects don't go, a lot of the lower cost ones may end up moving up the ladder and be able to be done because we have that extra money.
And kind of on the opposite side of that is that for anything that's revenue replacement, that money is available. So if there's any projects that, like we see here, that we think is an immediate need that we, something that came up, like the one I could see most would maybe be the off-site backup for the town. Like if we considered that an immediate need, that's something we could move forward with faster than a project that has to go through Plymouth County. So just something to keep in mind.
I agree with that.
So there's basically less requested for the revenue replacement than we have available to the town, so we could actually knock off all of those potentially with the
Potentially, but I think a lot
684.
in I think a lot in the public health column could potentially be moving
Oh,
over
okay.
to the
Yeah.
revenue replacement, so.
Yeah,
Yeah, and I think just because it's easier, we don't want to use it up first, because
Right.
something may come up along the way where it may be more advantageous to use it there.
Something like the off-site backup, just thinking forward, and Dan and Dave from the Finance Committee, like, that's something that could very well be presented as part of his budget in the budget season. So if that's the case, that would be something we'd want to make a decision on in the next couple months of whether we're gonna pay for it from ARPA, or if we want him to submit it as part of the budget. But I think that would just,
It'd be unfair to ask, because if somebody came to you with a budget request, something that they could get through ARPA, would you refer them to ARPA?
I guess it depends on the immediacy of the need.
Yeah.
If we find that the process through Plymouth County takes 6 months, I wouldn't,
And also, we gotta consider the ongoing cost for whatever
Right.
it is. There's a difference if there's a one-time cost that they're gonna do.
right.
$1,000 a year from here on in, so. It's a rigorous process. We interrogate them.
I don't know if I should use that word.
Interesting, okay. So how do we wanna just pick a couple in general agreement, or do we wanna vote?
I think we should vote on the 2 or 3, whatever it
There's
is.
5 voting members here, right?
Yep.
Good job, guys.
All right, so if somebody wants to nominate a project, and want someone to nominate another one, and those will be that too, if they both pass.
I'd like to nominate the mental health and social emotional funding.
Anyone second that?
Second.
Okay. And anyone else with a project?
Hey, what? Oh, I didn't hear what you said.
I know,
Yeah, a second, we're looking for 2.
You can vote on that one. You can vote on that one.
All right.
How about something smaller or maybe simpler, like the playground equipment? And the reason I say that is because it ranked higher.
Okay. Inclusive playground equipment, that's the one, right?
Yeah, that was the first one. And I guess, I'm looking at the ranking that we came up with.
Any second?
Was-
Nadia? Thank you. All right.
Do you want to throw a third in case, just to cover all the bases?
Oh,
No? We want to keep it short?
I want to be succinct and keep, we're trying to build a model, we're not trying to build the whole plane.
Did the Mitchell sign?
Just one sign, 1 out of 3.
All right, why don't we vote on these 2 first, anyway? So the first one is mental health and emotional for the school. All in favor?
Right.
Aye. Any nays? So it's unanimous. And second one is the inclusive playground equipment. All in favor? Aye.
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 Any nays? No nays? Unanimous again. So we have two. And in fairness, I don't want to be a dictator, as much as I'd like to be. If someone would like to add another one, make a motion to add another one, we can go that route.
I'll motion to add another one.
Which sign?
Second, any second? So Nadia's motion? Okay.
This is just Mitchell, or is it both the Central and Mitchell?
This is just to
Mitchell.
add another project first. Then they gotta decide which one.
I think she said Mitchell, right?
Mitchell, yeah.
Well, that will also give us a little bit of a background on costs of signs and things like that, so we can use that for the other two.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Should have done that before they hot topped the whole driveway.
All right, all in favor of adding the Mitchell sign?
Aye.
1, 2, 3, 4. Charlie, 5.
Scratch the back of the wall.
All right. Oh, 4 to 1. Yes. All right. Anything else on our list and what we're doing with it? Did we want to talk at all about the summary of where we are with the money, or is that pretty much just, it's out there and we'll use it when we get to it?
I think it's pretty straightforward.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, future meetings, we want to go with bi-weekly?
Yes.
Should we, try to get a date that John's available before we set another meeting? Or should we set,
I'd
set a
rather set
meeting
the
and then
meeting
see if he
until
can
then.
attend?
Right, I'd rather do it that way.
Great. Does school committee usually meet
On Tuesdays.
Tuesdays?
Yeah.
So do they have their, do you know when
Right
their
now.
next meeting is?
25th, probably.
I know Finance Committee's meeting at 6 o'clock on the 25th. Because we couldn't meet on Monday because of early voting and someone else meeting.
Yeah, just school committee that night.
What, the 25th?
The 25th, so,
26th.
Do we want
It's
to
a
leave it?
Wednesday, we have trouble getting the room and stuff.
do you mind,
Doesn't say anything's going on.
do you mind back-to-back
Well,
meetings?
that's fine, it's life.
Veteran. All right, we'll go for the 26th,
October 26th?
24th, would that be better, Monday? Still back-to-back, right?
I'm actually not. Oh, actually, I'll be
available.
back. I'm traveling, but I'll be back by,
I'm not
be back
available
by
on the
like 4
24th.
o'clock.
All right, we'll stick with the 25th.
26.
6.
Who's inviting John?
John, right?
John Shea. I'll send it, I'll get in touch with him.
Okay.
6 o'clock?
Yeah.
So,
I'll send him an email and copy everybody, so we're all on the same playing field.
And you'll try to get him the application process so he has all that in advance.
So if you could send that to me, Melanie,
Sure.
thank you.
Send me the morning.
Maybe we could see it too, so that way
Yeah,
we
I'll send it
could
to everyone.
come up with our questions for,
That's what I wanted to
briefing
ask.
session,
Should we
then
come
we'll
up with a
interrogate.
game plan for this? I mean, should we, instead
I
of all
guess
of
we
us
could-
coming in with clear heads and not thinking about what these people are gonna present, maybe we should come in with a list of things we've agreed on as questions that we wanna get answers to.
We could also say, like, if we meet at 6, like, say he comes at 6:30, kinda,
It's a good
to
idea.
give us time
Do that
to
before, you mean?
pull it together.
Okay, yeah. Could do that too.
So then, our expectation of each of us will be that we'll bring in our questions and comments and suggestions of what we should be asking about and where we need to go.
Yeah.
would we want to circulate them before by email
yeah,
so
we
we
would wanna
could
do that.
kind of digest what each other is thinking?
So, from whatever day we get the applications process, that Melanie's gonna send out, take a week, and we'll just share emails, we don't have to get together. And then that half hour before we meet John Shea, we can kind of weed out what we don't want, and we infuse what we do want.
The only thing I'm not sure, I don't believe we can do, is we can't all be emailing each other because it violates open meeting
Okay.
law.
Okay, yeah. I guess I'm not used to working in town government.
So how do you do that?
So you could,
Email.
in fact, if you want something sent out by somebody not on the board, okay, it could be one of the advisors, but even more so, I'm not even an advisor. So if you wanted to send what you want me to send back in terms of materials to you, if there's anything in there that in essence is an opinion, you
Yeah.
know, a discussion of the project or anything like that, I can throw everything into the pot and then send it out. Here are the things that individuals have come. Thing is, it gets dicey even for me to do it because then I'm simply communicating your views to everybody else. So tell me again what you want to try and send to
We
each
should
other.
just,
I think I'm safe to send out the application because it's
Yes.
not giving any opinion, any
absolutely, yeah.
information.
Yeah,
So then I
very
guess
straightforward.
just bring our questions to the
to
meeting.
the meeting is
Yeah.
easiest.
Yeah, I think that's probably safest, and then it doesn't put anybody else on the spot.
Or you send me if you have questions, whether you send them to Melanie or myself, those are questions.
Right.
We can send them to John Shea, whoever the applicant is, and say, John, before you get to the meeting, have some backup to answer these questions that we expect that the committee's gonna be asking. That's perfectly fine.
And if we have a question about the application or the form that Melanie sends out, we can just individually send something to her.
Yes.
Not in a group, like not the board. not exactly.
Right, just send it to Melanie, and then she could
Yes.
send something to all of us,
No.
no?
Depends on what it was.
Yeah.
You know, say I ask you,
We'll fine tune it.
you know, I'm asking, is this gonna start at 12 o'clock? And she could send out to everybody, it's gonna start at 1. 12 wasn't right.
We can't discuss, like, so we can't,
I like this application because of blah, blah, blah. I dislike this application because of blah, blah. No. That's a no.
But-
I have questions. Here are the questions I
About
have
the
for John
question.
Shea, perfectly fine.
Or a
Yes.
question about the question on the application. If you say, what does this mean, that's looking for some opinion, but it's coming from Melanie versus,
Yeah, send it directly to Melanie.
I mean, we have 2 people can have a conversation with each other and be fine.
Right.
So you could talk to John one-on-one and be okay.
I was just thinking it might be wise for us to at least have
Leave it.
a game plan, you know, but a half hour before too would work.
right.
So we're doing it here,
Mhm.
you know, and then it's, you know, either way.
All right, so our next meeting will be that date, the 26th. Identified somebody to come. Anybody have anything else that we want to talk about tonight? Entertain a motion.
Motion to adjourn.
Second?
Motion's made and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Unanimous. Thank you. Thank you, Zach.